When people hear the word narcissist, they usually imagine a man, arrogant, cold, ego-driven, manipulative. But female narcissism, it's quieter, softer, more socially acceptable, and often mistaken for confidence, charm, or divine feminine energy. But underneath, it carries the same wound, a fractured sense of self, a hunger for validation, and a fear of being truly seen. Take Alyssa, for example. She's 32, smart, attractive, emotionally articulate. She runs a successful business, gives incredible dating advice, and always looks flawless online. She says she wants deep connection, but she ghosted the last man who got too close. She posts about healing, but explodes if someone questions her behavior. She surrounds herself with admiration, but secretly feels empty when no one's watching. She's not evil. She's not cruel. She's just terrified that if she stopped performing, no one would stay. As Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Female narcissism often hides behind self-help language, empowerment culture, spiritual bypassing, victim narratives. It shows up in the woman who controls with silence instead of shouting, uses sexuality as leverage, not intimacy, craves admiration but avoids vulnerability, frames every relationship as a test others must pass. And the reason it's hard to detect? Because society rewards women for being perfect, for being captivating, magnetic, untouchable. And narcissism is performance at its most seductive. As Carol Gilligan wrote, for women, the moral problem is not only learning to speak, but learning to hear their own voice. But a narcissistic woman doesn't hear her real voice anymore. She hears what will get applause, what will protect her image, what will keep her from feeling ordinary. And that's the trap. Because as long as you're addicted to being special, you'll never experience what it's like to be truly loved, not for your effect, but for your essence, how it damages you. Most conversations about narcissism focus on how it harms others, but what no one talks about is how much it hurts you. Because being a narcissistic woman, even if you're high-functioning, admired, and successful, is exhausting. It's a constant performance, a high-stakes game where you're always managing perception, controlling narratives, scanning for threats, withholding real emotion just in case it makes you look needy or weak. And the worst part? You've built a world where no one can touch the real you, and now you can't feel anything real. It starts small. You fake confidence, and people believe you. You avoid conflict, and people call you graceful. You tell your truth selectively, and people say you're wise. But inside, you feel like a curated ghost of yourself. You obsess over being admired, but you fear being known. You demand high standards from others, but never hold your own vulnerability to the same light. You sabotage closeness, then say, "No one can handle me." And so the cycle deepens. The deeper the connection, the higher the panic. The more someone loves you, the less you trust it, the more secure life becomes. The more restless you feel, you start to believe that nothing is enough, that something is missing in every job, every man, every day. But what's missing is you, the real you, the one buried under control, charisma, and curated femininity. The false self thrives on performance, but the true self thrives on presence. When you're stuck in narcissism, love feels like a transaction. Vulnerability feels like humiliation. Stillness feels like irrelevance. Intimacy feels like loss of control. And you tell yourself you're free, but deep down, you're trapped in a world where every mirror is distorted. Because you've learned to see yourself through other people's eyes. You might have money, beauty, social power, but you're emotionally starving. Why? because admiration doesn't feed the soul, control doesn't calm the nervous system, and pride can't hold you at 2 a.m. You can't connect because you never learned how to let your defenses down without feeling like you're about to die. And the tragedy is, you built this fortress to protect yourself from pain. And now it's the very thing that's keeping you from love. So no, you're not hurting just the people around you. You're hurting yourself, not with cruelty, but with distance, not with arrogance, but with avoidance, not with selfishness, but with a secret terror of being ordinary and unworthy. And until you face that part of you, no external love will ever feel like enough. Here's the hard truth. No man will love you into wholeness. No therapist will break through your mask unless you're willing to take it off first. No friend, no retreat, no TikTok mantra will heal what you're still pretending doesn't exist. And the longer you wait for someone to save you from yourself, the longer you'll stay stuck in the same quiet hell, admired on the outside, disconnected on the inside. But here's why that truth is actually good news. Because if no one else can fix you, then you're free from waiting, from blaming, from outsourcing your power. You built the armor, you built the image, you learned to manipulate attention, to perform emotional intelligence, to dominate through charm. So guess what? You can also choose to dismantle all of it, if you want to. The problem is, most narcissistic women don't think they need to change. They think they just haven't met someone strong enough to handle them, or that they're too evolved for basic emotional drama, or that people just don't get them. But deep down, they're just scared. Scared that if they drop the act, no one will stay. Scared that if they tell the truth, they'll lose control. Scared that if they become real, they'll become replaceable. But the irony is brutal. The longer you perform being too much, the more you make yourself emotionally untouchable. So no man is coming to break down your walls. No therapist will ever force you into self-awareness. No external validation will fill the space where your real self should be standing. And that's powerful, because it means the healing doesn't depend on your past, or your parents, or your ex, or your followers. It depends on one thing only: your willingness to see yourself, without filters, edits, or spin. And once you do that, really do it, a whole new layer of your life unlocks. You start to feel real joy instead of just looking happy. You start to give without keeping score. You start to love without domination. You start to live without constant inner noise. No, it's not easy. You'll grieve the old identity. You'll feel raw, exposed, unprotected. But what you'll also feel is alive. The bad news is, no one's coming to fix you. The good news? You don't need them to. Self-awareness isn't a trend. It's not a buzzword. And it's definitely not a collection of spiritual affirmations pasted over your emotional wounds. Real self-awareness is brutal. Real self-awareness is unglamorous. Real self-awareness is a kind of death, followed by rebirth. It begins when you stop asking, why do people keep hurting me? And start asking, what part of me is attracted to dysfunction, and why? It begins when you stop saying, no one can handle me, and start asking, am I even letting anyone see me? It's not always big or dramatic. Sometimes self-awareness is sending a message you would have ignored because now you own your impact. Saying, I was manipulative, instead of justifying your behavior with trauma. Letting someone have the last word, not because you lost, but because winning no longer matters. Feeling the impulse to perform and choosing to stay silent. Self-awareness is no longer using your pain as a personality. Take Nina, 35. She was the woman who always had the answer, always turned the conversation back to her, always made you feel like you were lucky to be around her, but never truly let anyone in. She wasn't a monster. She was just terrified of feeling small. But when she finally got tired of her own games, she started changing in quiet, invisible ways. She stopped oversharing to appear authentic. She stopped punishing men for not reading her mind. She started asking instead of manipulating. She started crying alone, not because she was broken, but because she was finally present. And little by little, the noise faded. She didn't need to dominate the room. She didn't need to be adored. She didn't need to be more. She just needed to be honest. As Brené Brown says, you can't get to courage without walking through vulnerability. And for the narcissistic woman, vulnerability is not a cute Instagram post. It's not crying on camera or saying, "I love myself" 30 times in the mirror. It's sitting in silence without the applause, the attention, or the external fix, and still being able to say, "I am enough," even without being admired. That's not weakness. That's maturity. That's power. And for many women, that's the beginning of something real. Here's the truth most people avoid. You don't need to kill your ego. You don't need to erase your confidence, your charisma, your intelligence. You don't even need to hate the part of you that learned to survive through performance, charm, and control. Because that part, the narcissistic part, was built for a reason. It protected you. It got you through situations where being vulnerable was dangerous. It helped you stay functional in a world that often punishes softness and rewards masks. But now, it's not saving you anymore. It's costing you. Costing you your peace. Costing you your real connections. Costing you the life where you get to be whole, not just impressive. That's where integrity comes in. Not moral superiority, not fake humility, but real, embodied integrity. Saying what you mean even when it risks rejection, owning your past without needing to over-explain it, being consistent when no one's watching, letting yourself be seen, not the curated version, but the full spectrum. Integrity is when the woman you are in public matches the woman you are in private. And yes, it will feel strange at first. You'll feel smaller, less shiny, less powerful, because integrity isn't flashy. It doesn't beg for applause. It's quiet, steady, grounded, and deeply magnetic in ways performance could never be. This is not about being perfect. It's about being real. A woman in integrity no longer needs to manipulate, seduce, or posture. She doesn't need to make herself big to feel worthy. She doesn't need constant attention to feel alive. She becomes the kind of woman who can be alone without feeling abandoned, can love without keeping score, can admit she was wrong without falling apart, can receive love without suspicion because she no longer lives to protect an identity. She lives to embody the truth, and that's what makes her unforgettable. Not her beauty, not her brilliance, not her backstory, but her willingness to be exactly who she is, even when it's messy, raw, and unrewarded. That's the shift from narcissism to integrity. Not a breakdown, a realignment, not a punishment, a release. Not the end of your power, but the beginning of a kind you never had access to while wearing the mask. Maybe you weren't toxic. Maybe you were just scared. Maybe your narcissism wasn't cruelty, but protection, pride, and pain dressed up as control. And maybe now you're ready to stop surviving. Not because someone convinced you to change, but because you finally got tired of your own performance. You don't need another mask. You don't need another script. You don't need to be liked by everyone or admired by strangers. You need one thing: to be real enough to be loved for who you are, not who you perform to be. And that's what this whole journey is about. Not shame, not self-hate, just the courage to stop lying to yourself and call that healing. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to become honest enough to come home to yourself. And trust me, that version of you, the one behind the defenses, she's not weak. She's the strongest woman you've ever been. Now tell me this, what's the one truth about yourself you've always known but never said out loud? Drop it in the comments. No judgment, no mask, no performance, just truth. This is She Needs to Har This, 100 videos, 100 truths women were never told. Subscribe. Share this with someone who's strong on the outside, but maybe silently breaking inside. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is finally stop pretending.